You'd almost admire the sheer brass neck of somebody like GeerUp to sit there and make a video on the topic of evolution, sitting there pretending he knows something about the subject, that he is actually in a position to make an informed judgment on evolution. And then to prove how absolutely ignorant he is on the subject, what does he go and do in order to illustrate the point that he thinks he's making on the topic of evolution? He goes to Wikipedia and looks up fossils. The mind boggles. Truly it does. But even then, that aside, in the first 30 seconds or so of his video, which was about as much as I could stomach of this level of stupidity, he goes and points out what to him seems like to be a nail in the coffin of the topic of evolution: the fact that there are fossil fish and fossil shrimp in the fossil record. He somehow seems to think that that is the basis on which to build an argument against evolution. This reminds me, let me explain it to you in the sense of, with an allegory, imagine a vessel, a container, filled with water. And the container is very irregularly shaped. But of course, water is water, and water is liquid. Now, in one of the tendrils of this irregularly shaped container, right at the far end of one of the, bits that sticks out, say, there's a water molecule called GeerUp. And it's laughing at the idea that other water molecules might lend credence to the idea of liquidity. And as an argument against liquidity, he points out, why aren't the other molecules in this vessel all down this same little tendril here, sitting in the same little corner of this puddle? And that, he thinks, is an argument against liquidity. The same is true for GeerUp's argument against evolution. What GeerUp clearly doesn't understand is that creatures do not evolve from a lower primitive state to a higher exalted sort of perfection. No, GeerUp, that is not the way it works. And of course, if you had about 3 brain cells to rub together, you would have known this, but no, you are too busy sticking your head up your God's ass to notice how stupid your argument is. No, evolution works by the fact that organisms slowly evolve to fill the niches that are available in their environment. They evolve to fit those niches better and better. How does that happen? Simple, because every organism that doesn't fit its niche as well as its neighbor gets outcompeted by its neighbor gets to procreate, and it gets to die. And then its neighbor, which is better adapted to the niche, produces offspring, which is also better adapted to the niche, and if in there is something that's even better adapted to the niche, it fills it even better. And that's how life slowly spreads out like a liquid to fill the niches of nature until everything's full, or the shape of the container, the environment changes, at which point it all takes off again. And that is what you don't understand, GeerUp. That is what your mind simply cannot comprehend. The argument against evolution, to point out that there are still monkeys out there, for example, or that there are still fish when there are higher evolved creatures like us about, is ridiculous. Those creatures are adapted as best as nature has been able to do so far to the environments within which they thrive. But I'm going to even point out something even more important that shows how idiotic an argument like Geerup's is. Let's assume for one insane moment that evolution actually works the way Geerup pretends it works, the way Geerup puts into the mouths of scientists as saying that as claiming that they say the way it works, some sort of progression from primitive to more advanced. Yes? So imagine that bacteria all evolved to more advanced creatures, multicellular creatures, and that everything that was still a bacteria was left behind. So there would now, according to your crazy abortion, your crazy misconception, your misrepresentation of what the theory of evolution says, there should now not be bacteria, right? Please then, Geerup, explain how in a model as idiotic and retarded as that, a human being could possibly survive without intestinal flora, without animals and plants to feed on. Because surely, if evolution was real, everything should have evolved beyond those primitive stages of being animals and plants and bacteria. Shouldn't they, Geerup? Please, Geerup, explain how in your model of evolution a so-called highly evolved animal could possibly survive. Please do. Or else, maybe stop and realize how mind-numbingly ignorant you really are on the topic of evolution.